we're super excited to hear everything you have to share with us today.
Okay. You guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Yes.
So thanks, Hugo. This is really good. Like always wanted to come and talk to the clients of DealVault. I know you guys are doing a lot of good things. There are a lot of properties and a lot of transactions are happening as we speak through DealVault, and that's one of the platform which we use for our properties too. And there's an immense advantage when you're using the DealVault is about the properties which not on the market. So basically the what we call as a shadow inventory, which are the probates or pre-foreclosures and all. I just want to take a few minutes. So I haven't spoken with you guys for a long time. So I guess the last meeting Nancy, you and me had with these people are maybe what 6-7 months back now, or maybe just before COVID or just COVID started. So I want to just take a moment and talk about a little bit what we see in market. And I guess Nancy, you can also tell from your side before we can get into the actual presentation part of it. So what we are seeing is a lot of uncertainty. It's the same thing which I said last time. We just don't know what's happening. Yeah, we know the COVID cure is out there. People are going to get the cure, but things are still, for administrative point of it, for the practical purposes, it's still kind of same thing. A lot of properties are the volume is less, so the investors are getting that pressure of not getting the good deals. There's a lot of competition as the properties. There are more investors versus the properties out there. Especially on the investor end of it, we deal a lot with rental market through our program and through Mastery. A lot of flips are actually coming out, and this might be actually the great time for people who are not doing rentals and like looking into flips, because of that uncertainty. I think the people are not noticing, okay, what area we should buy the flips, whether flip are going to sell into March, April, May, June time frame, the prices are going to come back or not. So I think whenever there is an issue, and when there is a thing in investors' mind that, okay, can I buy it or not? So it's the seasoned investors, like the people who are with DealVault. This is a great opportunity for them to get some properties under contract, and that's what we do in Chicago market too. Chicago market is like cyclic. In terms of whenever there's a winter market, I would like to get my pipeline completely filled up, because I get less competition. Whenever there's a Christmas, whenever there's a Thanksgiving, people are busy. The people who are not the hardcore investors, they're busy. They don't come out. Whenever there is a snowstorm, they don't come out. Whenever there is a something which is going on in the world, people don't come out, and you get good properties. And that's mine. Always I get properties like that. Like today we had a property we just put in the contract, which came back from the HUD. We had the backup offer. The first offer failed, and then we were in the line. They called us, and we got the property in a corner. Great deal in I forgot, I'm blanking out now. It's in Glenwood, yeah. So it's a great price for a Glenwood property, which is a HUD. Not a lot of people know how to do the HUD properties. So if your agent, your broker know how to do that, you get a advantage of buying those properties, because they're very particular about the paperwork. A great property we got for under for 60,000. Doesn't need much, maybe 15, 20,000 in work. Back in value is 135, 140. Taxes in Glenwood are a little bit high, 50, 5,500, but you get good rents too, which offset that higher taxes. So this is an opportunity market in a sense that you need to be out there looking for properties which make sense. If the deal makes sense, I'm still buying properties. If the properties are from the mature neighborhood, which you know that these neighborhoods are solid, they have performed well in every market. Yeah, when market goes down, the property prices went down, but then it bounced back when the market comes back. Those are the markets which I'm more interested at this stage. I'm not trying to explore into new properties or new areas, which are new for me, I guess that's what it is, but I'm not exploring in those markets. I want to invest right now or do investments in a market which I have historically worked into it and I know they're going to bounce back. Nancy, what do you see on your side? Like you deal with a lot of financing part of it, you deal a lot of investors. How's the cash flow? How's the loan process? What's the status?
Yeah, absolutely, Rahul. I think that both it's an exciting time for both new investors and seasoned investors, and we're helping them get ready. If there's one thing we've talked about, as lenders started loosening up their lending criteria, is let's start positioning investors and helping them with lines of credit. Let's start getting them prepared now because this inventory is coming out. And we can only anticipate that coming into the new year, that's exactly what's going to happen. Did we have a lot of restrictions for lending during COVID? Yes, we did. Are we seeing the lenders, bringing out more programs and loosening up their standards? Yes, they are. So I'm excited because just a few weeks ago, we didn't have a whole lot of programs for new investors or rookie investors that didn't have a lot of projects or any projects under their experience. Now we're seeing that lending coming back. So, in response to your question, Rahul, this is definitely the time of getting your financing ready.
Yeah, means I'm telling all the students or whoever we work with is this is the time where you do your homework, get everything ready for the storm which is coming. Everyone knows that the foreclosures are off for almost now 9 months. The courts are not doing anything. The auctions are off for that much time too. So if you can imagine right now, all these pre-foreclosures, people are in forbearance, people are getting all the fees are not there, they're not getting any late fees, they don't have to pay anything if they're in forbearance. Their jobs are gone, even if they are not paying, and they're okay because they're not making money, but they don't have to pay the mortgage. So right now, a lot of people taking the advantage of that and they're not doing anything with the property. A lot of people are just not moving or just not making any change because they don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months and they don't want to buy new houses. They're just keeping their houses right now. When the forbearance will end, when this all the COVID will start the whole engine again after the COVID, it's going to take some time to get all these things actually come back to the realization that okay, what went wrong, who is in trouble. If we don't know that, it's going to take another 3 months to 6 months because right now the evictions are off. So a lot of people who are not paying rents, nobody's evicting those people. If they don't have job, and if their job is lost, they're not going back to the job. They're still not going to pay rents, even if after COVID situation. So the landlords which has properties, which with the tenants which are not paying, they are not going to come current, and it's going to take time for those landlords to realize that, or their lenders to realize that these people are not going to pay that. So we don't see that happening for another 6 months. But in the 6 months, when the things will start, I'm very sure that prices will be good. Means the areas which we used to invest, like I started investing back in 2010, 2011 timeframe. I started from the northwest suburb, invested in Hanover Park, a lot of DuPage County, Schaumburg area, Streamwood area. That's where the numbers used to work for us. We used to buy properties at like 60,000, 70,000. Can you imagine that? Like Streamwood, today's market price for a ranch is like 200,000 minimum. We used to buy those properties at 70, 75, put 30, 35,000 to fix it, and then 100, 110,000, your property is ready to either rent or either to flip, whichever case is that. So same thing with Glendale Heights, same thing with Carroll Stream, all that DuPage County, which is like very solid areas that always those properties are going to work for you, even if you're renting, if you're flipping. So I expect those kind of numbers, not at least those, but numbers which we can work with are going to come back just because of the sheer volume of the properties which are going to go into the foreclosure and going to go into all this mess, which is going to start up, I think, in like 2 quarters. So getting your financing in place is what I recommend to everyone right now. Like if you don't have a lender for your hard money lending, if you don't have a line of credits ready to go, if you are not pre-approved for your refinances on the back end, somebody who bought properties in last like pre-COVID or just before COVID or in the March, April month, if their refinances are not done because a lot of those lenders, a lot of the commercial lenders canceled the programs during COVID and nobody were doing any refinances. They just started doing a lot of the back end refinances, and Nancy will go through that later when she'll talk about Chicago funding. But if you are stuck into those situations, this is the time. Get your properties refinanced, get your money back so that you'll be ready for the purchasing new properties at the right price in much better neighborhoods coming 2021. Anything you want to add, Nancy, before I get into the presentation?
No, I'll just follow your lead. I know that there's a lot of questions regarding the different types of lending and financing available. So you can go ahead and Rahul, I'll just take your lead.
Okay, no problem. So can you see my screen well, or do you? Can you guys see my screen? Okay. So what we are just trying to do is like we are just trying to understand financing for every person. Like when I look at financing, when I started doing anything on the investing side, see, buying the right properties and doing the buying the right location is a different thing than understanding what exactly you have resource-wise. So there are 3 things for me when I look at financing. Is one thing is real estate is all about money. Means you need to understand the properties, but if you can't understand the money portion of it, the transaction, how you run the transaction money-wise, is where the cash is where the skill set is. If you understand how you roll your money from one property to the next property, how you can do your capital fees or capital you're putting into it, if you can minimize all that part of it, you can have more money for you for the next transaction. So understanding that or managing your money throughout the real estate transaction is one thing which is very important for me. So understanding the funding programs for that, if you want to understand that, you need to know, okay, what is available in the market? What type of financings are there? What type of loans are out there? What types of hard money loan? What type of refinances? What type of any other loans which you can actually get into, which will help you? And it will change per person. Every person has a different profile. And that's the third thing, is understanding your profile. Because I get some loan, not necessarily Nancy is going to get some same loan, because she has different profiles. She has a different type of resources. I might have certain things which working for me for certain program, and she might not have that. So understanding your profile is important after knowing exactly what type of programs you have. And then you have to escalate, or you have to basically improve your profile to get to the better stage, so you can get the loans at a less interest, at the less fees, and for the good duration. So that's what I think is understanding financing. So if this works, okay. I'm just going to go briefly through what is out there and what are the programs you might want to look into. This is pretty simple, like everybody knows all these programs, but I just try to put it in 2 different ways. So when you're doing the transaction for, let's say, flip, on a flip side, when you're doing any flip transaction, you're trying to buy property which doesn't have, which you're trying to add the value. So you buy the property low as you can. There needs a rehab. You need to add the value. Once you add the value, you can sell it at a higher price with profit. And that's just the basic flipping. But for that, okay, where you can buy the property? Property is not in a good condition. So a lot of times you have to find money in different ways. So what are those different ways? One, obviously, personal funds. If you're rich uncle, if you have a tree in your backyard which can give you a lot of money, no problem. You can buy as many properties as you can. And that's a personal fund, which is the cheapest money, obviously, but then obviously you're losing that money for other investments. So you need to look at a personal fund as a funding to your business or flip. IRA is the other where you can find money. So if you have a IRA accounts, or somebody else in your family has IRA accounts, somebody your friends or somebody who you can pay money through IRA, that's a perfect use of IRA, because a lot of the IRA program has the restrictions of not it's like a third party kind of thing. So hence you have to give it to someone else and not benefit yourself. It has to benefit your retirement account and not your own. So it's always better to do like a note and mortgage and give the loan to somebody who's trying to do flip. You can get good interest, and then that's what you can look at. Home equity, a lot of people lose that. I get a lot of people who are paying if they have money, and they just keep paying down their houses, and they just don't know what to do with the money. So they just put in a house. A lot of people forget about that. Right now, home equity loans are very cheap. They're like less than 2% or 3%. If you have money in your houses, or even your investment houses, you can tap into those, get a home equity line of credit, and use that money. On obviously then private funds or the private money lenders, there are a lot of private money lenders who wants to make interest. And the way I wrote this thing is like, as you go from the personal fund to IRA to home equity to private to the hard money, is basically how much interest you're paying. It just goes high, 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 high. And as an investor, you have to keep it as low as possible. So you need to find a program which will be less capital intensive on your flip. That way you can make more margin or make more profit, because if your money is cheap, obviously you're going to make more money on your money. So as you go into private fund, like there's a lot of different people charging a lot of different type of interest. Private funds have seen anywhere from like 10 to 12 to 15 to 18% interest, and like 4 to 6 months duration. So it's kind of a relationship business. It's kind of a relationship where you have to have some sort of a relationship with a private fund where he feels very comfortable giving you money. And if you get money, recycle their money 2, 3, 4 times on different projects, then the interest might come down. They might start a little higher because they just don't have a relationship, or they don't understand you. And maybe second, third project, they might lower your interest. So it's all about the relationship based. Hard money, and that's where Nancy comes into picture. Means I always like for flips, institutional money. The way I don't want like to call hard money. It's very hard term. It's very difficult term. Institutional money is what I like to call, because that's really sets your profile up. You need to use the institutional money, because then that is all the history you are developing for yourself, especially if you're a flipper. If you're flipping houses all the time, then that's the best way to get money, because the durations are longer right now, and Nancy will go through that, but it's anywhere from 12 to 18 months right now. So let's say you get into a project because of COVID, because of something, you don't get permits, or you get stuck with city, or whatever the reason might be, your project get delayed because of certain reason, or you lose a buyer because of something, and you have to get back on the market. Then again, you get the next buyer. So your flip might go from a 4-month project to maybe a 12-month project. With a private money situation, the private money guy might want more interest and more points as you get into 6 months, 9 months. But with the institutional money, you can actually go up to 18 months. And obviously the step 2, which is in flip case, is basically you're selling the property off. Once you get the money, you're paying off whichever loan you used to buy the property, and then the difference is your profit. And that's what flip is. On rental, it's just a little bit different. On rental, the front end is still same. You're using the same resources or same lending programs to buy the property. So it's like a flip on a front end. On the back end, when you finish the project, when you rehab the property, you have a tenant in there. Now it becomes an income making or investment property. Now there are options. Now you can go to bank, and then bank will look at that investment as an income making investment, and they can give you loan. And these are basically, you're looking at a long-term loans, which is anywhere, the commercial loans are 5 to 7 arm. So it's a 5-year to 7-year fixed, and then you have to refi, or it's a balloon loan. or they are 30-year products. So if you are somebody who can get a residential loan right now, which is a 30-year fixed, if you have a W-2 job and good credit, that's the best product out there. Means right now it's like I'm refining a lot of my loans, which I did back in 2015, because 2015 the 30-year residential loan rate was almost 5.5% and 6%, and now it's down to like 3.25. So I'm actually refining my investment properties down to 3.25 to 3.5. So it's anywhere from 3 to 3.25 at a 30-year fix. If you go to commercial loan, I'll let Nancy go through that because that's her product. She can explain it better than me, but that's a similar to residential loan. It's just a little bit higher interest to somebody who doesn't have a W-2 job, somebody who doesn't have 2 years of income on their taxes, then they will have to go for this commercial product. And so on a rental, you can finance it, depends on how you're financing on a front end. Then once your tenant is in there, you start making money, it becomes an investment property. You go to the bank and you get a long-term loan, and that is fixed for you, and you can cash flow after that. So just go, I think I covered most of this thing, but like these are the criterias for all the loans from my side of it. Chicago funding is here, which is she'll explain. But the way I was telling you, if someone has a good credit and someone has a good job and good taxes, they can use the home equity and the 401ks and IRA and personal fund. That's where you can actually reduce the number of fees and how much your expense on the loan side. As you get into the private funds and hard money, you're talking about 10 plus interest rates. So it depends on who you are, it depends on your profile and how you can use it. That's how you look at this funding side of it. This is for the long term for refinance. Like I'm looking at 3 main programs. This is 30-year fixed residential. So somebody who has a 2-year taxes, W-2, 720 plus credit right now, it keeps changing, but you're in 3 to 4%. That's what you want to do. But not everybody can qualify for that because not everyone has the same profile, which we call as a busy professional kind of profile. So they have to go here. They have to go to commercial loan, which is maybe a 1% higher. It's right now actually a phenomenal product where you can fix your interest on your rental properties for 30 years, and it's only 1% higher than your 30-year residential. This 30-year residential is really hard to get, and there's so many requirements and so many documentation. As compared to the commercial, they're looking at the property and they're not looking at you. If the property qualifies, you get loan. So there are very flexible terms from 30-year fixed residential to 30-year fixed commercial. 5 to 7 hour commercial small banks. A lot of the loans you if your properties are in an area where a lot of community banks are there, if the loans are like a smaller, if your properties are less than 100,000, 80,000 ARV in today's market, some of the commercial loans might not take that loan. It depends what kind of a loan program you're using, but most of them don't right now at least have a criteria where your ARV is less than 100, and it might change every few weeks, but they won't give you loan. Then in that case, you'll have to go to the small bank. These are like small banks, like a community banks or credit unions, which will give a commercial loan, which is a 5-year fix. They're also at a 4 to 5% right now. They're good products. Means when I started my portfolio back in 2011, none of the banks were giving loans on these foreclosed properties. Like there was no residential program, there was no commercial 30-year program. All these programs started in 2015, 2016, or 2014, I would say. The first 3 years, I was getting loans from the small banks, like the Heartland banks or your small community banks, which are the banks who wants to do the loan in their footprint. So let's say you're investing, for example, in Berwyn. I had some properties initially in Berwyn. There was a small bank, Oak Park Bank, which is the community bank. They were ready to lend us in that community because they have federal guideline. They have to do 35 to 40% in their own area. So they see that as an advantage. If a good borrower takes the money, then they get a good loan out of that, and they are looking for those. So it's always good to go and check with those guys if they can fund your property, especially in the local area. Same for flip, same for the refinance. This is just the way I look at a profile. So you need to find out for yourself like who you are, and that there are a bunch of programs out there, but not everything you can get at. So if you are not a busy professional, in my terms, when I say busy professional, is somebody who has a W-2 income, who has good taxes, who has shown 2 years of consistent income. They are the ones who are going to get the residential loans. It means they are basically going to get all the programs. So if you're in that category, you have an advantage of choosing because you have an option now. So it's always the residential program is the cheapest one. As you go to commercial, a little bit higher versus hard money, a little bit higher. So, but somebody who is in that profile, they have the ability to use any option. If you don't have right now income, or if you are furloughed, or whatever the reason might be, or you're a small business owner, you had 1099, like a lot of the real estate investors or brokers, those kind of income, then you are in the small business professional, the 1099 category, where you are not going to get that residential loan. So just forget about it. Just don't look at it right now until you get into that bracket. So for you, you just have to go to Chicago Funding and Nancy, because she can get you loan based on your profile. You just have to keep your credit a little bit higher. 660 plus is where you should keep your credit. Means that's, if you're not buying properties right now, you should work on your credit, get your credit up. If you can get 720 plus, you can get the best interest rates out there, and that's going to help you for your long-term investment. I think I went too far here, but Nancy, this is the example like how we can go through that later. But I can just let you go and talk about Chicago Funding and whatever the programs you can provide right now, and what's the rates and everything. You want to share something or?
Yeah, of course. So just to piggyback a little bit of what you said, I know that there's a lot of questions that are coming up already in our chat. Javier is asking, do banks offer HELOCs on investment properties? So the answer to that is there are limited products out there for investment properties on HELOCs. Some of them may have waiting periods. They are riskier, and the rates are a lot higher. If you have an opportunity to do a HELOC on your own property, that would be the first recommendation for you to start doing any investing. To piggyback on what Rahul was talking about, the different banks and the different financing. Guys, at any given time, as an investor, while you're building your business, you're going to have to touch one or the other, or a variety of all of it. There are opportunities for you to buy in cash. Well, that's great if you have that rich uncle, like Rahul said. Are you able to get a traditional loan? Of course, if you've got the great credit score and a good W-2, but just be mindful that your debt to income ratio, they want all of your full documentation. They want all of your W-2s, your tax returns, your pay stubs. Not only are you carrying your personal debt, but they want to make sure that you can handle to carry on your investment debt. People do like to do a lot of the rate shopping, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we do an assessment and we try to understand what your needs are, most of our investors will do the commercial route for a couple of reasons. They're willing to pay a little higher rate, but they don't want these mortgages to be reported on their personal credit report. I had an investor that told me that her credit score would never go higher than 630, 640. And the reason for that is she was carrying a $400,000 investment loan up on the north side of Chicago. As soon as we helped her refinance that property into her business LLC, her credit score just went way higher because we removed $400,000 off of her credit profile. So there's a lot of reasons why you would go one way or the other, but that's up to you, where you are in that profile that Rahul is talking about. Even if you have a great W-2, even if you have the great interest rates, at some point you may cap out on how many traditional loans you can carry. At some point, you're going to have to go the commercial route or try to do the community banks. In regards to commercial lending and hard money, there's not a whole lot of difference, but I don't consider myself hard money. I consider myself commercial lending. Do we have to go to the hard money? That depends on you. It depends on the risk. And yes, I do have a lending partner for that as well. In regards to W-2s and pay stubs, my products do not require income qualification. It's all property based and it's all asset based. We want to see your credit score, we want to see your experience, and we want to see your assets. Just be mindful, even if you have an 800 credit score and you've never done a project, you're still a high risk because we don't know, or the bank doesn't know if you know what you're doing. So I'd rather have a 700 or a 680 score if you have some experience or you're in the trade. But again, it's one by one, case by case. The scenario is different for everybody. It's an assessment that needs to be done. And as you get experience and you're able to pick and choose what product is best for you, then we'll just help you get started and help you navigate what your needs are, whether we got to do the line of credit, whether you want to go the commercial route. And even if you have these properties in place, you want to convert these properties into buy and hold rentals, right? We already gave you the money for the purchase. We already gave you the money for the rehab. And now you have it rented. Now you have a lease. What do? Well, you have options. So just be mindful, like Andrew talks about all the time. You need to know what your beginning strategy is and what your ending strategy is, your exit strategy. If we have to help you to navigate what's the best rental product out there for you, to not only cash out, refinance it into a 30-year fixed rate product without verifying your income, and your leases still provide a positive cash flow because you can show that rental income is still going to be lower than your new mortgage payment, then you're good to go. But it all goes back to what that value is on that property. So there's a couple of things that, we can talk about. I don't know. I know that the next screen that Rahul had was sharing some examples. And Rahul, you let me know, like I said.
There's one question on the chat. Maybe it's good to look at that right now. So the question is, if we have forbearance on a personal property right now, can we get a commercial loan under LLC? It's a good question, and I don't know that I know the exact answer because every program is different. But do you know about this?
My answer to that, Aaron, as long as it's not reported on your credit report, we don't know that.
So generally, when they are in forbearance like that on residential program, yes, you need to be out of forbearance for 1 month. If you pay all the balance, and then it will take a month before they can consider you for refinancing any property on the residential side of it. On the commercial side of it, like Nancy said, if once you pay the forbearance, I think it takes, I don't know exactly 30 days or 60 days to reflect that on your report. I think it's 30 days. So I think it's the same rule for all the loans right now. You have to come out of forbearance, but I might be wrong. Not every loan is on the credit report. So it depends on who you are talking with and who's your loan with. But 90% or 95%, I want to say that you have to pay off the loan, get out of forbearance, and after 30 days, if you check on your report, it won't be there, or it will say it is pay off, and now they can consider you for refinance. There might be some exceptions on the commercial loan, and that's something I guess Nancy Your lenders have like fewer lenders you have, they might do the exception if they know that if we can give them a statement and that you say you pay off already, they might consider you and start at least doing the application. So good question. Is there any other question before? I just want to go through an example that people understand how they can use these programs, and with different profile, it could be a different answer. Nancy, you want to walk through this example? This is your thing.
All right, so we have a property that is shared on Rahul's screen, 1354 East 156th in South Holland. So it looks like the purchase price was $100,000, and the rehab budget on this was 23. They did get a fix and flip loan, but they knew that at the end of the day, the ARV was going to be about 175. So they asked for money for the purchase and the rehab, right? At the end of the day, after the property was rehabbed and after the property was rented, now they can convert that into a single rental loan, a rental refinance for 30-year fixed rate product. The value did come back at 175 as they anticipated. And at the end of the day, once they refinance the loan out at 131,250, it looks like the rate was 4.75 for 30-year fixed rate. Their mortgage payment now is 695, and clearly their cash flow is good. It doesn't say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the other side of the screen. Now they cash flow 522. This is what we're talking about, guys. If you have the right property and you convert that into a rental, a buy and hold rental, as long as your leases and your new mortgage payment, and there's a cash flow there. So it has to make sense for the lender and it has to make sense for you. We get in trouble, or I should say you get in trouble, if you don't know how to do the numbers right, or if you anticipate that the value is going to be a lot more than what the appraised, after rehab value is. So the good thing about what we do when we do the appraisals on the fix and flip loan, we'll consider both numbers. Our appraisals, we can finance up to 90% of your purchase price plus 100% of your rehab. But when that appraisal is done, we'll anticipate two things. Number one, the as-is value on the amount of the property that you're purchasing it for. And number two, your ARV value. We want to see your scope of work. We want to know how much we're going to finance on the rehab portion of it. And we want to make sure that you're still in a conservative risk to be able to refinance the loan out. Because when your numbers are not there and you're outside of those parameters, that's when people get in trouble. So you're handling this slide, Rahul. I don't know if you want to give some more examples.
No, just so this is like done. This is done by the fix and flip loan, which Nancy did to Chicago Funding. And there's a question there was, does the down payment need to be seasoned? So when she funded the 90% of the purchase price, there was a $10,000 the buyer has to bring to the table. And I think for that money, there are some criteria which has to pass. Like there is if it's your money, it has to be in bank account for 60 days. And correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, but there are other money you can get. It cannot be gift money. So you cannot just show up in your account suddenly and okay, you had $10,000 in your account and the next day you show up like $40,000 and you have, oh, my dad gave me or my mom gave me. It doesn't work that way. The gift money is not considered. What you can do though, if you get a note on your some other property, then you can have that money as long as it's leveraged on a real estate, then it's okay. Even if it's a second lien on your different property, not the same property though, obviously. It cannot be the subject property. It has to be some other property where you can have another second lien and get that money in your account and then you can use it for seasoning. So For season money, there are some criteria. As long as you pass those criteria, then you can use that money. Otherwise, it has to be seasoned for 60 days. I don't know if it's different or.
So technically it's correct, but the other answer to that is if it's not seasoned, it has to be sourced. So if you just had another closing the day before, well, as long as we can see it, where it's coming from, not a problem. If you just got a big settlement check and you're able to document it, not a problem. As if it's not seasoned, at least it needs to be sourced, because that whole cash under the mattress thing ain't gonna work for us. Because at the end of the day, we still need to be responsible and fiscal to report that that it's not funny money, like we humorously call it. Another question: can you get a commercial refi on an LLC based on a property, even if you don't have a W-2 or a 1099? The answer is yes. I don't need a W-2. I don't need a 1099. Even if it's a new business, a new LLC, and you haven't filed a return yet, as long as I'm able to do a letter of explanation that it is a new business, you as the individual is still a personal guarantor. We're still going to pull the credit report and see where your credit score stands to evaluate the risk. But if you choose, you do have that choice to close the property in your personal name or to close the property in the business name. So I don't necessarily need a tax return, but we will qualify your score to be the personal guarantor on that loan. So that's the answer for that.
So Nancy went through this example as a lender very fast, and I guess I just put her on the spot, and she didn't know exactly how to say what. But anyway, but she just went through as a Chicago funding type of transaction, and this is Chicago funding transaction. So the property was funded by her on a front end. Property was funded by her for a long term, and this is the profile of exactly what she was just talking about when people are asking question. Somebody who owns this property is the same profile. He doesn't have a job as a 1099 or even W-2. He's making money from his investments. He has money coming from different sources as K1 income or interest income, which is different than just a normal job income. So, but he got qualified on this property based on his credit. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, understand who you are. And then once you know who you are and what type of programs you can use, then you can actually use it for your benefit and use it efficiently. That way you can reduce your cost of owning the money, because that's where you're going to make all the money in the world. So somebody who has no job, but his credit was excellent. I don't know what I think it was a 740 to 750 plus kind of a credit situation here, and he understands how to do this transaction. So if you look at numbers carefully, the property is in good area. It's in South Holland. It's a good 3-bedroom, 1.5 baths. So like me or Andrew, I don't know, this is like the blah house. Like, there's nothing special about this house. These are the kind of house which we love to invest. Doesn't have a basement. That's a plus for me. As long as it has got 3 bedrooms, then I'm okay having not a basement. 1-car garage. So when you're looking from, I'm going into more investing side of it than a funding side of it of this project. But when you are investing for yourself, that's the first thing. Even if you qualify for a lot of lending programs, you just don't want to put money into the properties which doesn't make sense. So the transaction has to make sense for yourself, and it has to be a long-term rental. Then only you can use these 30-year products and those programs. So for me, the maintenance on this house, once the property is ready to go, once you fix the property, once you put your first tenant in there, what we try to always do is we try to put all the money on the capital side of the project. So when you're fixing the property, we don't want to cut any shortcuts on the basic systems. So if the AC is not working, HVAC system is not good, I want to change it. If the plumbing or electrical is not good, I want to change it. Because once your tenant is in there, it's very difficult to do those kind of things. If you fail, if something happens, it becomes very difficult. So from an investor side of it, I would rather have it on the front end, because if I know that I'm going to get a funding for this thing, I mean, this is like there's no money in this property after the refinance, but even if I have a larger budget. Let's say I know I'm going to qualify for a loan on the front end. I would rather do all the capital investments on that right now and then put that everything in the loan, because now you can depreciate it longer. So so you get the most benefit. And if you're doing the expense, let's say after a year or so in the service, let's say you don't do the HVAC and you don't do the plumbing. After 1 year, somebody is in the rental and they start questioning there's a problems. Now that after 1 year, if you want to spend like $8, $9, $10,000 on the property, that has to come from your pocket. Otherwise, because the loan is already set, all that, you don't want to keep doing the refinances and resetting the loans, because every time you change a loan, you're paying fees, you're paying the closing cost, you're paying all that, which you want to avoid. So whenever you are investing or choosing the right loan program, try to understand, okay, what is this what the project is required. If it's a long-term rental, put everything up front and talk to your accountant. I'm not an accountant, but that's what I would say. Like, get the benefits of depreciation, get the all the benefits of putting the money into the long-term programs. That way you will get more out of it. So in this case, he actually calculated the loan or calculated rehab right. So the 23,000 is what he was trying to get from Nancy on the front end. He was able to do everything in the house. House is ready to go. Now the maximum money he could refi on the back end. So when the house was ready and the renter was in there, he went to Nancy, and Nancy gave him a loan of that entire amount he spent, which includes his purchase cost, includes his rehab cost, and includes his carrying cost. So that entire amount was now put in a long-term loan, which is only 4.75% in this case for a 30-year fix. And now he can use the entire amount on his accounting side of it, take the depreciation, take all the benefits of the taxes. So this is the best example of how you can use your situation and how you can use the loan programs. If somebody who's like, I can see Liza on here, she has a profile. I hope you're okay. I'm sharing that, but she's a W-2, right? Actually, not her, not all. So if you have a W-2 job, then you can use that, and this same loan, which is 4.75 on a back end, now it can be 3.25. So suddenly the cash flow, which is, and guys, I'm going to, when it comes to number, I just get excited. So if I'm going too fast, just let me know. But if you can see the principal interest 695, this is for 4.75 interest right now, right? So if this 4.75 interest goes to 3.25 for $113,000 or $23,000 loan, it's almost like $100. So you're actually getting $100, $125 every month extra in your cash flow. This 522 number will be 620, 625. And that's a lot of money you're getting. So using the right program will change your cash flow or change your return on your investment a lot. So somebody who can do a residential loan, this is where they can make 600, 650 cash flow as compared to this person who cannot do the residential right now. But again, for him, he managed the numbers right. Entire money came back. When I say money invested zero, means 123,000 went into the program. Nancy was able to give him $123,000 loan. So all the money he invested came out of it. So he has nothing in the property. Everything is financed, and on top of it, he's getting 500 plus cash flow. So if you try to calculate, the people who like to calculate the return on investment, you're putting zero money in there and you're getting 500 every month. So it's kind of infinite. Like, this is the best thing you can have for your investment properties.
That's good.
But same transaction can be done by your HELOC. Like somebody was asking me HELOC. So you cannot have a HELOC on this property, but your personal house, if there is $113,000 you can borrow from your personal house, now the front end of this, where he spent maybe 10% interest for the commercial loan to do this transaction, I think this was 6 months transaction, he could have done that with his HELOC money, which which could have costed him maybe 2 or 3%. And so that's how you can reduce your cost based on what programs you can do. And it all depends. Everybody has a different answer. You need to understand who you are and what loans you can find for yourself. And then you can qualify more and more as you go from one property to second to third, or one transaction to second to third transaction. You get better rates and you can qualify into better and better programs as you go further. Go ahead, Nancy.
Before I share my screen, I'll just address a couple of the questions that people are asking. So question on the chat, do we need to get a certain kind of contractor to get a loan? The answer to that is no. You can GC your own products, your own projects. However, you need to make sure that all your due diligence is done. In certain municipalities and villages and cities, yes, you need those permits and those contractors to be approved or in place. But for the lending piece of it, it's a reimbursement, guys. Yes, we're giving you purchase money. Yes, we're giving you rehab money, but that rehab money is an escrow account. As you complete the phases in the rehab, you're asking for reimbursements. You need to show that those phases are completed before you're able to draw from your escrow. So there still has to be money in your pocket for you to start the rehab, but as you complete the phases, you draw the money from your escrow account. So I don't necessarily need your contractors to be specific, but the village or the city or the permit process may. So just be cognizant of that. The other question, besides the $10,000 cash to close, the investor had to pay the closing cost. Guys, this is the cost of business. It's a cost of business, just what Rahul said. You have to understand that there's fees. We have to pay the title fees. We have to pay appraisal fees. We have to pay transfer stamps. We have to pay, set up a new escrow account for your taxes. So somebody's got to pay these closing costs. And that's going to be you because you're the investor. So in the purchase transaction, can you negotiate the seller to pay for some of that? Absolutely. But on my end, if the seller's paying it, if the seller's not paying it, you're paying for it. On a rental refi, whether it's a cash out or whether it's a rate and term, we hope that there's enough margin to roll that in. And if you did not do your numbers right, then somebody's stuck. Somebody's in trouble, and we don't have enough numbers or margins to pay your cost. So that should answer that too. Someone else asked, hey, I got great credit scores, but I may not have W-2s. Why can't get a loan? I don't know the specifics. It could be assets. I mean, I have people apply for a line of credit, but they barely have a couple of $100s in the bank. So it's not just, guys, it's not just a credit score. It's not just experience, but it's also risk. So we got to still at least document, if I'm going to get your first loan for 90% financing, we still need a document where that 10% is coming down, or where's it coming from? So some of these calls or emails that I do get, and I see the reserves are limited, I kind of encourage people to say, find a partner, get a joint venture, let's find some money, because we still need to document some kind of asset to be able to get you a line of credit. The reality is this.
The cosigner is the best solution for a lot of times, because some people just don't have liquid cash in their account, or they have some situation in their life where they just can't get that, whichever situation you cannot get out of it, but somebody else in their family or friend or somebody who can work with them, if they co-sign, and the entire situation changes. So, but those are like the case by cases specific. So if you reach out to Nancy, she should be able to look at, once she looks at all your documents, she should be able to help you on that.
Great. So I don't know who the admin is on me to be able to share my screen. If someone can give me permission, I'd appreciate that, so we can go ahead and go over. Perfect. No, it's still not letting me share my screen.
Hey, Phil, can you please make Nancy the organizer?
Yes, you go. I already did. Let me check here.
Oh, yeah,
Steven-
yeah, Nancy. You're the presenter now.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
so
looking screen, guys. Nothing. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Not letting me do the screen sharing piece of it. I wanted to go over another example, but I will talk about rental refi for a minute. Most of my rental,
Do you want to email me that, Nancy?
well,
You
I
can email
did.
it.
Yes, I hear some feedback. Someone else has got their,
Yeah, everybody is on, I guess, that's why.
okay.
That's okay, go ahead. I guess you, if you can just talk through your slides.
Yeah, not a problem. So one of the things that we always talk about is fix and flip funding. They're interest-only loans, and these are temporary loans, guys. They could be 9 months, 12 months, and they can be extended over 12. We can give you 90% financing for your purchase, plus 100% financing for your rehab, as long as both loans or both numbers are still within 70% of the new ARV. So I had one or two examples, but I'll just keep this simple. If you're buying a property for $100,000, okay, and 90% of that, 90,000 is their purchase price, well, then you need to come up with $10,000 in down payment. You're gonna get 90 for your purchase, and let's say it only needs 30 for the rehab. So total loan will be $120,000. Got it? Like I said earlier, at the end of the day, you still need to have some money in your pocket to start the rehab process, because that's escrow for the 30,000.
I'm going to restart it. I'll call it.
Maybe you should mute everybody else other than presenter. It's loud here.
Thank you.
yeah, please continue, Nancy. We unmuted everyone but you.
Okay, thank you so much. So at the end of the day, your loan is going to be 120, okay? What I've explained to people all the time is that it has to make sense. If that ARV value is only 135, it doesn't work, guys. It still has to be within 70% of the new ARV. So this is where people get stuck because they don't know how to do their numbers. Before you get into those contracts, before you start signing away and buying and trying to get these loans, these numbers have to make sense. I need to make sure that you're protected and the lender's protected on the back end of it. If that combined loan, your purchase price plus your rehab, is still within 70% of the new ARV, then you're not in trouble. It's still a conservative risk for you and for the bank to have enough time to get the money, to start the rehab, to rent it out, to create that cash flow and say, okay, guys, I'm ready. I have my cash flow. I have my leases. I can show that my cash flow is a positive number. And now we come back and we refinance the property out. You have two choices on the refi. Just rate and term, pay off your closing costs and pay off the bank, or cash out. If you have enough margin on that ARV, then you can cash out and probably get more money back. Pay off your bank, pay off your closing cost, and probably tap into a little bit of that equity into the property. A lot of our investors do it pretty much all the time, but it goes back into finding the right property. One of the things we talk about all the time is people say, okay, well, what if it's just a flip and I don't want a rental refi? Perfect. but it still has to be within the time frame of the parameters of your loan. Because you guys have to be careful. I'm also an investor, and I've also, was in a time crunch. City of Chicago is not easy to deal with. The permit process is not easy. Getting inspectors and getting, things done through the city is not easy. And I did have a loan that took me more than 9 months to get it ready. So there are extension fees if you have to go past your term, but we'll discuss that when we qualify you and we qualify the property. And that's where I'm going to go into the next segment. One thing is qualifying you as the borrower or your business, okay? You're still the personal guarantor to the loan. You choose if you want to close it in your personal name or if you want to close it in your business name. But the next step to that is qualifying the property, because it means nothing if I can get you an approval or a line of credit, but if you keep bringing some garbage properties, we can't do anything for you. The properties need to make sense. The numbers need to make sense. So we want to make sure that you're not put into a position where you get in trouble or you have money stuck into the deal, which goes into my next segment. Have we had situations or investors that have left money at the table or left money in the deal? Yes, but that was still their choice because it was still a great area, because it was a great cash flow, and they were willing to take that risk. So at the end of the day, this is business, but it has to make common sense for you and for the lender, okay? Not every deal is going to be easy peasy, but it's doable. The number one question people ask me all the time is, why do the commercial route if I can get a greater or a better rate at my bank? That's really choice. It goes back on, do you want to carry that debt into your personal credit? That's your choice. Do you want to kind of hide that commercial debt into your LLC? That's your choice. I'm also an investor, and my husband and I just prefer to have those mortgages in our LLCs because we want to make sure that our credit is not jeopardized with carrying so much debt. But that's our choice. If we choose to pay a little more of a rate or a little more of a payment, it still makes financial sense for us as investors or individuals, because we don't want our credit report or our personal debt to be jacked up. That makes sense? Because I want to protect my debt utilization under my personal name and my personal social. But again, it's still your choice. Will you get a better rate if you go through a traditional route? Of course you will. But at the end of the day, the cost of business, I can go refi at a 4.3 maybe, or I can refi at a 5.8. That 1.5% interest rate for me is not a big deal if it's only $90 more a month for me. But that's still my choice. I hope that makes sense. I'm so sorry.
Another thing, Nancy, I want to add is like somebody who has, it's a speed. When you are doing the commercial loan, especially with the programs which Chicago Funding has, means personally, I have done multiple loans, and whenever I'm doing a loan with a bank or loan with a residential, there's just so much of paperwork and so many things you have to provide, especially when you are doing your second, third, fourth loan. Every loan has to be there are so many requirements. So let's say you are an investor who's doing like 2 or 3 deals at a time. I generally choose the one loan go to residential, then other 2 loans I want to do commercial, because I can't have that much money at the same time in the market. I need my money back because there are other deals I have to buy. So it's the speed also. So it depends on what kind of investor you are. But it's a mixed strategies work when you have multiple deals going on, and especially with the commercial, because there is not many requirements and loan can go really fast in 3 to 4 weeks as compared to on the residential side. If you have a lot going on, it's going to take a long time. So it's a opportunity cost. So let's say your loan doesn't get done in like 6 weeks, your money is stuck there, and now you lose a property. What that cost you is nobody knows that until you really lose something. So that's why I use the mixed strategy, and it depends on like who you invest, what type of investor you are.
So I'm glad you used that word, because if there's one thing that I've learned as an investor, Rahul, and learning from other seasoned investors, it goes back to learning your strategy and learning your numbers. The bigger benefits, and I speak for me, okay? The bigger benefits for a line of credit is, even if we have to buy a property in cash, because that's the only way we can get it in contract, because I have a line of credit approval, I will recapture my purchase money. Yes, I put cash. Yes, I bought it at an auction. Yes, I closed it on the MLS, whatever the deal was. But once I took a hold of that property, you best believe I took advantage of my line of credit. I recaptured 90% of that purchase price, went back into my cash account, because now I recaptured my cash again. And now I financed 100% of my rehab. So that was a strategy for me to be liquid again and not tied up into one property. Guys, how many investors do we not know or are probably on this call that are working cash deals, but they're limited to one project a year, maybe two, because they're waiting for that money to recycle out through the whole process. But when we start teaching people how to leverage the line and how to use these products, this is the reason why many investors, including myself, are able to do 2-3 projects simultaneously. All I need to worry about is my 10%, 10%, 10% down for each transaction, because I already know that these are good properties where I'm putting the 100% of the rehab into an escrow account, and we keep moving along. But it does take a certain juggling and risk involved. But this is how investors are able to build and to leverage and not necessarily tie up all of their cash reserves. Every person is different, guys. Every situation is different. Build your assets, yes. Protect your credit, yes. Have the options and alternative lending products in your pocket, absolutely. But at any given time, and I say this all the time to everybody, in any given time, add on the line of credit as an additional tool to building your business. Yes, you're going to tap out on cash. Yes, you're going to tap out on private lending. Yes, you'll have access to traditional lending, but at some point you're going to have to go these other routes to help build your business. So I'm going to type in my email address and my contact information. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to share my slides today, but I will be available for any questions you guys may have. Rahul?
Now I'm just looking at the chat if there are any questions. For some reason, I cannot open this chat window completely, but
Okay, so what percentage of loans do we, I'm reading, sorry. What percentage of loans did we give in a year period? We're 100%. Covered purchase price and rehab. So at an average, probably anywhere between about 250 loans is what we've averaged the last 2 years. I can't tell you those percentages because I don't have them off bat, but I can tell you that most of these were anywhere between 90 up to 90% on the purchase end of it and 100% on the rehab end of it. There were a few on the table that I can remember did not qualify, and that was because of risk or because of score or because of assets and reserves. Then we had to go another route, and that was probably hard money. What kind of money and how was it left at the table? If you didn't have enough ARV value to recuperate your investment and you had to bring money out of your pocket at that refinance, that's what I mean about leaving money at the table. Yes, have I had 1 or 2 investors have to take a couple of $1,000s so they can pay off that private lender? Yeah, it had to happen. But they were okay with that because this was still a good cash flowing property that was going to generate $500-600 a month, and they knew that it would be just a matter of months for them to recapture that investment. So it goes back on that appraised value not coming in at that magic number we're looking for, or the cost was a little higher than anticipated.
Especially, Nancy, especially with the refinance loans, the appraisal is generally like it's not something which you can really um, uh, predict, because what happens when you're flipping a property, when you're selling a property, when appraisal goes to the house, he has a contract in the hand. He knows the contract price. Let's say you're selling the property for 200,000. He knows that he's trying to prove if that house value is 200 or not. So the way he's thinking when appraisal goes to the property when you're selling or buying is he's trying to find enough comps around that 200 to make sure that, okay, that 200 makes sense. And then if he finds the comps, even if they're a little bit away or a little bit older comps, he will tag onto those comps and give you that $200,000. In the refinance, it is different. Like the bank has no control on who can go and refinance that. They obviously they are ordering it, but they have to order to a third party. They don't know that third party person is sending which person to that area. The person who's doing appraisal on refinance does not have a contract amount. They don't have the amount which they don't know how much money is refinanced by a person. So they are trying to, they have a license. So what they generally do is they try to be on a conservative side. They generally try to be, there is a band of maybe $10,000 to $20,000. And if you're a conservative appraisal, it's going to come on the lower side of it as compared to the higher side of it. And that $10,000, $15,000 shift sometimes, what Nancy is saying, is might be enough for you to leave the money on the table because you're expecting maybe a 200,000 and the appraisal comes at 180. Now suddenly your loan guy is going to say, I can give you 75% of 180, yes, but not the 200 which you are thinking. Now you have to bring that extra $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 because the appraisal is lower. And that's what happens with refinancing. So understanding number, be on a conservative side when you are doing these calculations. Understand, okay, the appraisal is going to be a little bit lower. So what I do is I generally use a 90% rule for me when I'm doing the calculation. So if the market price, today's market price is $100,000, I'm going to use 90,000 as my appraised value for my house. If it comes to 100, well and good, then I have a choice whether I want to take more money or not. But if my numbers are working on 90,000, then I can plan for it. Even if the appraisal comes at 90, I can plan for that extra money at closing, and I don't get into trouble when Nancy call and say, okay, your appraisal is lower, and then now suddenly you don't have that extra 5,000, 6,000 to close the property at the closing table. So understanding that number and be conservative on your numbers is what I generally like to do.
Thank you. Answering another question, getting a loan, do we report on the credit and are you building through it? So I don't know if she's talking about or someone's talking about business credit or the personal credit. You are still the personal guarantor unless you choose to close a property in your personal name. Yes, it's being reported. Even if you choose to close it in a business name, then it's not, but it will be reported once you default. The moment it goes into a negative standing, you best believe the lender is going to report the delinquency on your credit report, because at the end of the day, you're still the guarantor. And another question, what's the interest rates? So I always talk about ranges, guys, because it goes back to credit, goes back to experience, it goes back to your risk and assets, right? So it's different if you have, a great 401k, a lot of money in a money market. That's different than having minimal or limited resources in the bank. So it goes back on all those factors. But having said that, my fix and flip products right now can start anywhere between an 8 to an 11%. If you're a rookie or new investor, if you can't document 3 completed projects, then anticipate high 9s, low 10s to start off, okay? They are interest-only loans. That means that you're only paying the interest on every mortgage payment a month. And the next question is, are there payments during the flip? We do have one product through one of our lending partners where we can escrow 6 months of the mortgage payments or 12 months of the mortgage payments in the cost of the loan. So that will be either both on the fix and flip product to buy and rehab, and it doesn't necessarily come into out of your pocket because I can escrow your payments on there, or you can choose to pay the monthly interest on the product or on the loan itself. What kind of rate for my 30-year fixed rate rentals? On the refi end of it, my base rates are now high 4s, low 5s, but it's still less than a 6%. And again, it goes back on risk and it goes back on the loan to value. Your rate is lower if you only refinance 65% of the value. Then your rate goes higher if you refinance 70%, and it goes higher if you refinance 75%. So it goes back to risk. The numbers have to work. Some people will say, no, I don't need all that cash out, but yes, I just need enough to pay back my bank and to roll in the closing cost. Perfect. We won't know what that final number is until we have that ARV on the appraisal. And now we're talking about points. Yes, of course, I'm a broker. This is the cost of business, guys. It's not just your pretty face, I promise you. We're going to teach you how to make money, but there's a cost of business. Do we have origination points for us to fund your funding for your fix and flip? Absolutely. Do we have origination points, and are there costs with the lender? Underwriting fees? Are there other costs with title fees or closing fees? Absolutely. But I can't give you flat rates because it goes back on the percentage of how much you are financing. And in regards to what kind of docs and profile are needed to get a line of credit, Javier, send me an email. I'll have a checklist. At least I have some kind of basics I can go over with each one of you. Nancy at ChicagoFunding.org. Sometimes it's a phone call and say, yo, you're not ready, bro. We make up, put some more money into the bank or find a partner, and let's do a transactional loan for a small deal, and let's put some money in the bank and then have you do a line later on. When I started 3 years ago, Rahul's a witness to that. I partnered up with a friend. I didn't have the experience, he had it. I didn't have to come in with 20% down. He had the experience for me to come in with 10% down. My first line of credit was $150,000. You best believe that when we made money on that flip, I resized my line of credit into $350,000. Guys, 2 years later, I just resized my line of credit at $1.5 million. So this is what I tell people all the time. The moment you start building assets and you start building experience, now you're a much seasoned investor for you to be able to get those kinds of lines and opportunities to do multiple projects at the same time. So we want to be respectful to everybody's time, right? And I know there's a lot of questions, so I'm going to ask you guys to you have permission to talk to me, send me an email at nancy@chicagofunding.org.
So, yeah, I mean, like Nancy can be reached out there. I guess I see a lot of familiar faces here, but those who don't know, even if the COVID time, we are still doing the 3 days, and I think the next 3 day is, I was just checking on the website, is March 12th through 14th. So if anybody has an experience of 3 day, that's something where we talk about these things in detail. And Andrew goes through a lot of the details. I go through a lot of the finance side of it. Nancy will be there. There are a lot of other speakers will be there. So if you haven't done a 3 day before, I'm sure Hugo, if you can send the information on 3 day, so that way people will know the next dates.
Yeah, absolutely.
But from our end, we are done on this. You guys are asking questions, so. Hugo, you want to take over?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So thank you everyone for joining the webinar, and thank you, Rahul, for not only today's presentation, but you've been a great coach mentor, advisor, friend. So I want to thank you on behalf of Frida and myself for everything you and Andrew have done for us, and obviously for being with us tonight. So thank you very much, Nancy, for the great information that you both provided. That was incredible. I greatly appreciate it. And friends, if you still don't have access to DealVault, we're gonna give you 30 days free trial. The promo code is gonna be funding. So Phil, if you could please send instructions for people to get free access to Chicago DealVault for the next 30 days. And we're gonna do something really cool. We are going to also give you a free ticket to the 3-day. That is coming up on March 21st through the 23rd. That's going to be an incredible event, as Rahul mentioned.
March 12, 13.
12 through 14. So we're going to, right, so we're going to give you a free ticket when you sign up today, if you still don't have access to DealVault. Okay, so we're going to honor. But yeah, no, thank you very much, Rahul, Nancy, Phil, for your great support. And we look forward to seeing you on our next seminar. Phil, if you could please send the invite for Wednesday's webinar, that'll be great. And then you'll get the replay of this webinar first thing in the morning tomorrow. So thank you everyone for joining. We'll remain on the line for the next couple of minutes. If you have any further questions, or if you need a call back from us, please send us your personal contact information, and then we'll call you back after the webinar. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Awesome. Thank you, you all.